Hello everyone, welcome to the fresh videocast episode of Cozy Conversations. And since Teachers Day is around, I really wanted to make a video on Teachers Day and reflect on my teaching journey. So by God's grace, in the year 2021, I got a chance to teach students from 4 public schools of Nepal, that is from 4 government schools of Nepal. And first of all, talking about how I got to teach my students, how I got this opportunity for teaching. So I think this was an opportunity I got because of my emotions matter. So my supervisor, Ms. Bhavana Shrestha, was selected as the International Teacher Ambassador for Empathy Week 2021, and because she was chosen as the ambassador, we could work with an international organization called Empathy Week. And this organization had launched a beautiful concept where they built stories of different people around the world, and by using these stories they wanted to teach students about empathy. Like, how cool is that? So given that I work with Bhavna Di, she trusted me and then she handed over this project to me, because of which I got a chance to teach students from 4 government schools of Nepal. And I think it was one of the most meaningful projects that I've ever been a part of. So first of all, my sincere gratitude to Bhavna Di, as well as my Emotions Matter team, as well as Empathy Week, for trusting in me and giving me this opportunity to impact somebody's life via teaching. And now, without any further ado, diving right into my teaching experiences, I have prepared a few questions. So I have a few questions that were given to me by some of my social media followers, and a few questions that I've prepared myself to reflect on my teaching journey and what all it taught me. So yeah, the first question that I have here is, how do you feel when you are around students? I think this is a question that was posed to me by one of my past students. So how do I feel when I am around my students? In Empathy Week particularly, the students that I taught were from government schools of Nepal, and for anybody who resides in Nepal knows that students that study in government schools usually come from underprivileged backgrounds. So my students came from underprivileged backgrounds. Some of my students were domestic helpers, some of my students were from rural areas, so they literally had to walk for like 1 hour to get to their school. So they had a lot of struggles going in the back end. So how I felt when I was around my students was that, first of all, I felt really sad. Like, why I felt this sad was because I felt like those students deserved much more than what they were getting. I always had that feeling in my mind. I also felt ashamed at certain times. I felt like, okay, what did I do to deserve all this privilege in life? Whereas some other people have to struggle a lot from their childhood years itself. So there was always that sort of feeling of sadness that I had. When I was around them, I realized that some of them had really struggling backgrounds. So I think there was that hint of sadness. But then I also felt really joyful when I saw the students' curiosity. So sometimes, you know, like even today, some of my students remember the stories that I told them 4 months back, and they message me saying that how that story helped them, or they talk about that stories, and that curiosity that they had, you know, like whenever I was teaching them, they were like very curious. Those curious eyes, they used to lit up and they were listening to me and they were hungry for more knowledge. So I think that curiosity made me feel very joyful. So in the last book that I read, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, there is this quote, "I'm both happy and sad at the same time, and I don't know how that can be." I think that was what exactly my feelings were when I was teaching my students in Empathy Week. So I felt both joyful looking at my students being very curious, उनीहरू जुन तरिकाको जिज्ञासा ल्याउँथ्यो मेरो क्लासमा, I think that was something that really made me feel joyful. But at the same time, knowing their background stories or knowing their stories of struggle, I think that was what made me really sad. So I felt both happy and sad at the same time, and I don't know how was that possible. That was there. So I think that answers the question about how I feel around my students. The second question is, what was a major challenge that I faced in the process of teaching, and how did it help me grow? So I think there were two challenges that I faced in the process of teaching. So the first challenge was my own nature. So because I taught all of these students online via Zoom, one problem with teaching students online is that you have to take care of a lot of things. You need to be mindful of admitting the students. You need to be mindful if somebody's left the meeting in between. You need to be mindful if somebody is writing or chatting to you while you're teaching. You need to be mindful of the questions that are coming in the chat section. So you need to be mindful of whether or not your internet is working. You need to be mindful if your voice is not breaking. So these are a lot of challenges that you go through when you're teaching online. Like, there are a lot of things that you need to be alert about. So you always need to be in that alert mode. And given the kind of person I am, initially in my classes I used to be very panicky, you know. I used to panic a lot. I used to be like, okay, kaise hoga, how will I do it? I used to be very panicky. So that was a major challenge that I faced, but I think I also learned the power of calmness. I also learned how to maintain your calm even when you're wanting to like panic, and you know, like you're really panicky, like how to stay calm during such situations. I think I learned that in my teaching journey. And yeah, so that was a major challenge. Like, I tend to get very panicky about the little things here and there. This is a flaw that I have, and that was a major challenge. And the second challenge for me that I faced in my process of teaching was that teaching takes like a lot of background work. So when I was a student, मलाई चाहिँ कस्तो लाग्थ्यो भन्दा like teachers हरुले हामीलाई कति homework दिनु भएको, why are these teachers burdening me with so much of homework? किन मलाई यति homework दिएको, मलाई यति धेरै काम हुन्छ घरमा. Teachers हरुलाई त रमाइलो छ नि, they go back home and then they can just chill. Their work hours are over once they leave the school. This was a misconception that I had, and I think teaching helped me break this misconception that I had, because I realized that teaching requires a lot of background work. Before I went on to my classes and then taught my students, there was a lot of background preparation I had to do, from preparing slides to knowing the content well myself, to preparing myself mentally, to getting ready, to getting dressed. Like, there was a lot of background work, and I think that was a major challenge. But gladly, I am really proud to say that my students did win the Global Empathy Awards. So after I taught my students about empathy, they had to take part in a project. So they had to develop a project about how they would solve a problem in their community by using empathy. And a student group of mine made a beautiful short film on how they would solve the problem of caste discrimination. कसरी चाहिँ उनीहरूले जातीय विभेदको समस्यालाई चाहिँ उनीहरूले empathy को through चाहिँ कसरी solve गर्थ्यो भनेर they made a very beautiful video. I'll also link that video here so that you guys can go and check it out. So they made that video and they bagged the Global Empathy Awards, and they competed with an international team and still won. So that was a very, very proud moment for me. And that was. So now the third question is there any particular moment in my teaching journey which reminded me of my teachers? मेरो teaching journey मा त्यस्तो कुन moment थियो जसले मलाई मेरो टिचर्सहरुको याद गरायो? So as I said, हैन, मलाई चाहिँ I think मेरो teaching journey made me feel very, very grateful towards my teachers, because the kind of I realized how much effort teaching takes. And I realized that teaching is one of the most underestimated jobs and under-glorified jobs, especially in the context of Nepal, but I think teaching takes a lot of efforts. So after I started teaching, like after I taught the students, I realized the immense amount of efforts that my teachers took for me, and I feel that that made me really, really grateful for my teachers. So that feeling of gratefulness has increased, especially for my teachers after my teaching journey. And मलाई अर्को कुरा चाहिँ मैले भनौँ न अर्को एउटा moment when I really missed my teachers was when I missed my literature teachers a lot. Okay, so I taught my students by telling them stories. So in every class I used to just narrate a story to them, a story about someone in the world. So the teaching was done from a storytelling format. Ani when I taught my students in that way, it reminded me of all my literature teachers, okay, specifically Kesar ma'am from Galaxy Public School, and then Indu ma'am from St. Mary's. So it reminded me of my literature teachers and how much, because of them, I started liking reading, and I loved listening to stories because of them. So यो दुईटा टिचर्सहरूले चाहिँ मलाई एकदमै स्टोरिजहरू सुनाउनुहुन्थ्यो के. सो आई थिङ्क those stories were really impactful in my life, and I still remember a few of those stories. And I think stories are a very good way of teaching and learning. I think this is what I learned in Empathy Week, because I also taught my students with the help of stories, and I realized that my students used to feel really curious when listening to stories. So that's when I realized the power of storytelling, and it reminded me of all my teachers in school and my high school who taught me through stories and whose stories impacted my life. Specifically for this video, I remember Kesar ma'am and Indu ma'am. Don't kill me other teachers whom I have not mentioned, but yeah, for all the I did miss all my teachers who did tell me or narrate stories to me. I think that was something that I missed a lot. And then the next question is, did I enjoy teaching, and would I like to continue or pursue teaching in the future? So yes, I did enjoy teaching. I feel like more than enjoyment, there was this sense of gratification, this sense of satisfaction after I taught. So on all the days that I taught, when I went to sleep, I used to feel immensely satisfied. You know, I used to feel like, okay, मैले अहिलेसम्म जति पनि मेरो एजुकेसनमा इन्भेस्ट गरेको छु, it is actually meaningful, because मेरो एजुकेसनले गर्दा, मेरो स्किल्सले गर्दा मैले अरू स्टुडेन्ट्सहरूलाई पनि हेल्प गर्न सकिरहेको छु. So that sense of gratification, that sense of satisfaction, that sense of that was there. Like every time I took a class, that sense of gratification was definitely there. So I think that sense of gratification was absolutely worth it. I felt really meaningful. Would I like to continue teaching in the future? I believe that I would love to continue teaching, like in the format of travel and teach. So this was something that I did in the year 2019. So in the year 2019, where Corona was not there, I had been a part of an exchange program where teachers from the United States had come to Nepal, and then we had gone to this village Kabre, which is a few kilometers ahead from Kathmandu, and we had taught students from Kabre about various things, and I loved that like experience. I think that has to be one of the most cherished experiences for me till date. I still love and cherish that experience a lot, and if I do get a chance, I would love to become a part of more such experiences, and I would love to go for more travel and teach wala things, and I would love to travel and then teach students from other areas of Nepal or of the world. So I think, yeah, I would like to pursue education like that or teaching like that. Now the last thing is that a few of my friends on my social media told me that okay, I'm doing some great work and I'm doing some great progress in my career. While I'm really grateful that I have been working relentlessly, and some beautiful projects have been handed over to me thanks to my Emotions Matter and the team there. Like I have grown a lot professionally, I know that, but I don't think I'm there yet. And right now in my life, I'm going through a major quarter life crisis. So it's like I'm confused about what I should do in the future, if I should go for a master's or not, if I what is it that I want to do in life, what should my next job be like. I'm really confused, and I will be making a video on that as well. I will be making a video on my quarter life crisis and my journey in the quarter life crisis. So please stay tuned for that video, and I hope that my reflections on my teaching journey were meaningful to you. For me, I think my teaching journey was very meaningful, and if there's one thing that my teaching journey has given me, I think it would be to realize that it's very important to use your skills to help others. Like, I think that's what teaching was for me. I used my skills to help others, and I would love to do more such work where I can use the skills, the education and the learning that I have to help others uplift their lives. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in more such videos as well. Thank you so much once again. Bye guys.